Dear students, we have discussed menstrual cycle. Today we are going to discuss fertilization and implantation in case of human female. Now you know that there is one process that is called as insemination. Now what is this insemination? Insemination means to transfer the sperms by male into the vagina of female. This process is called as insemination. Now what happens? You know that during copulation, or you can say during coitus, male releases semen into the vagina of the female by penis, and this process is called as insemination. अगर आप फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव सिस्टम देखें तो सबसे पहले हम बात करते हैं यहां पर sperms are released here, that is, you know, this is the vagina. Now these are released by the penis in semen into the vagina of the female. Now you know these sperms are motile. Motile means they can show movement. As they have tail, this tail helps in their movement. They move through cervix and then they ultimately reach this point. And this is the junction between ampulla and isthmus of the oviduct. You know, this point is called as ampullary isthmus junction. These sperms, they move rapidly, they swim rapidly and pass through the cervix, then enter into the uterus, and then they reach at the junction of isthmus and ampulla, and this point is called as ampullary isthmus junction of the fallopian tube, or you can say oviduct. Now what happened? At the same time, ovum is released by the ovary. They also get transported to this junction, that is ampullary isthmus junction. Both sperm and ovum reach at this junction, and it is the point where fertilization takes place. Now what happens? You know that during every copulation, fertilization does not take place. For this, there is one condition, that these ova and sperms, they must be released simultaneously. We usually use the term ovum because a single ovum is released while millions of sperms are released in a single ejaculation. Now the first condition prior to this fertilization is that the simultaneous release of sperm and ova. That's why you can say that all the copulation, they do not lead to the pregnancy. Now at this point, what happens? Fertilization takes place. Now what is the fertilization? You can see in this diagram. This diagram showing the process of the fertilization. This is the fusion of sperm and ovum. This is sperm. You can see that there are more than one sperm, and this is ovum. This process of fusion of sperm and ovum is called as fertilization. Now during fertilization, the sperm comes in contact with the zona pellucida layer of the ovum. You know, this is the zona pellucida layer. This layer is called as zona pellucida. Then these sperms come in contact with this layer, and when it comes in contact with this layer, it induces some changes in the membrane that you can say ban the entry of other sperm into the ovum. It means it ensures that one ovum is fertilized by one sperm only. You cannot say that more than one sperm can fertilize the ovum. Only one sperm will fertilize the ovum, and this is the entry of other sperms. You know that millions of sperms may reach there, but the entry of other sperms, that is prevented by the changes in the membrane when this sperm, the first sperm that comes in contact with zona pellucida layer. Now you know that this sperm has different parts, and it has, you know, head, and then there is a small neck and the middle piece and the tail. You know, this tail helps in its movement, and this middle piece contain mitochondria only, and these mitochondria provide energy for their movement. And this head region contains a nucleus, and there is another structure which is called as acrosome. This acrosome helps in dissolving the membrane of the ovum, so that its entry is allowed into the cytoplasm of the ovum. Means this, due to this acrosome, this sperm can penetrate into the ovum through the different layers, that is the plasma membrane of the egg, as well as you can say zona pellucida layer of this ovum, which is surrounding the ovum. That we can say the secretion of acrosome help the sperm to enter into the cytoplasm of the ovum through zona pellucida as well as the plasma membrane. When this membrane gets penetrated by the sperm, now you know that there is a stage which is called a secondary oocyte, and division is stopped there. Now when the fertilization will take place, this secondary oocyte it will divide into two. Now how it divides? The entry induces the division. It divide unequally into two. How it divides? One is formed second polar body, that you know, and second one is oocyte, or it is called as ovum. The sperm fertilizes this ovum and zygote is formed. This is, you can say, this structure is zygote is formed, and zygote is diploid. You know, this sperm is haploid, and oocyte is also haploid. That's why a diploid structure is formed by their fertilization or by their fusion. It means when this sperm gets penetrated and it reaches the ovum, only then the secondary oocyte induces the division in itself, and it divides unequally to produce second polar body as well as the ovum. Or ovum is also called a oocyte. It is haploid, and when sperm fertilizes it, it forms the zygote, which is a diploid structure. Now zygote is formed at this point, because you know that this is the point where fertilization takes place in case of the humans, and this point is called as this is the site where fertilization takes place, and it is ampullary isthmus junction. Now what happens when this zygote is formed? Then it shows reverse movement. As you know, that sperms, they move towards the oviduct. Now this zygote will move towards the uterus. Now this movement is accompanied by a process which is called as cleavage. Now what is cleavage? Cleavage means that this zygote will keep on dividing mitotically, forming 2 cell stage, then 4 cell stage, then 8 cell stage, then 16 cell stage. You know, this is zygote, this is 2 cell stage, this is 4 cell stage, this is 8 cell stage, and then it will be 16 cell stage. Now the daughter cells, these daughter cells formed by the cleavage of the zygote, they are called as blastomere. Now these are blastomers. Now what are blastomers? These are the daughter cells formed by the cleavage of the zygote. And the embryo with 16 or 8, you can say 8 or 16 celled embryo, embryo with 8 to 16 blastomere is called as morula. So you can say that morula is formed first, that is it is formed by the mitotic division of the zygote. You know, zygote is diploid. It means all cells of the morula, they will also be diploid. Now this morula is formed. Now what is morula? Morula is a stage where this embryo contain 8 or 16 cells. Now this morula, it keeps on dividing and moves toward the uterus. But during this movement, it also changes, it gets transformed into another stage which is called as blastocyst. Now what is this blastocyst? This blastocyst is formed by the movement of cells. The cells form a outer layer which is called as trophoblast. That is, the blastomers are arranged into an outer layer, and this outer layer is called as trophoblast. And inner mass of the cell, this is called as inner cell mass. Now, this trophoblast is the outer layer. When these blastomeres get arranged in such a way that they form an outer layer, this outer layer is called as trophoblast, and there is a group of cells inside it, and it encloses a group of cell, and this group of cell is called as inner cell mass. Later on this inner cell mass gets differentiated into the embryo. तो यहाँ से फिर embryo बनेगा, and now this blastocyst gets embedded in the endometrium of the uterus. You know, the endometrium is the innermost lining of the uterus. When this blastocyst is formed, it gets embedded in the endometrium of the uterus, and simultaneously this endometrium of the uterus, it grows around it and covers it fully, and this stage is called as implantation. Implantation means that when this blastocyst gets embedded in the endometrium lining of the uterus, this stage is called as, this process is called as इम्प्लांटेशन. तो इस तरह से हमने जो टॉपिक किया उसमें बेसिकली हमने क्या क्या पढ़ा. सबसे पहले हमने एक चीज पढ़ी कि जब कॉपुलेशन होती है तो कॉपुलेशन के टाइम जो है वो ह्यूमन मेल जो है वो सीमन रिलीज करता है फ्रॉम द पेनिस इनटू द वेजाइना ऑफ द फीमेल, और वहां पे स्पर्म्स रिलीज हो जाते हैं इन सीमन, एंड देन दे मूव फ्रीली बीइंग मोटाइल इन नेचर, एंड दे मूव टुवर्ड्स द oviduct, and they reach at a point which is called as ampullary isthmus junction, and at that junction when the simultaneously ovum is released from the ovary, that also reaches at the same point, and fertilization takes place at ampullary isthmus junction. Now what happens when fertilization takes place? During this process you can see the secondary oocyte undergoes an equal division forming secondary polar body as well as the ovum or ootid. Now this ootid or ovum, it gets fertilized by the sperm and zygote is formed. Now this zygote shows movement toward the uterus, and simultaneously it keeps on dividing, and this process is known as cleavage. Cleavage means when cells keep on dividing, you can say division. It forms 2 cell stage, then 4 cell stage, and 8 cell stage, or 16 cell stage, and the cells at these stages are known as blastomeres. And the stage having 8 to 16 blastomer, that stage is called as, that structure is called as morula, or you can say morula is the embryo having 8 or 16 blastomeres. Now what happened, it keeps on moving towards the uterus, and simultaneously what happened, these blastomere, they get arranged into an outer layer. That outer layer is called as trophoblast, and there is another cell mass that is called a inner cell mass, which changes into the embryo later on. When this trophoblast is formed, then it gets embedded in the endometrium lining of the uterus, and this endometrium lining secretes a layer of cells around this blastocyst, and this process is called as implantation. Now what is the implantation? That is the you can say inner group of the cells attached to the trophoblast, and that is called as inner cell mass, and the trophoblast gets attached to the endometrium, and the inner cell mass gets differentiated into the embryo. After the attachment of the uterine cells, they also divide and cover this blastocyst, and ultimately it gets embedded in the endometrium lining, and this process is called as implantation. एक और important चीज है कि जब यहाँ पर fertilization होती है, जब sperm fertilize होता है, तो उसी स्टेज पे डिसाइड हो जाता है कि जो फीटस होगा या जो बेबी होगा उसका जेंडर क्या होगा. अब आपको पता है कि जो मेल होता है उसको हम XY लेते हैं और फीमेल को हम लेते हैं XX. अब यहाँ पर क्या है कि जो मेल है वो 2 टाइप के स्पर्म प्रोड्यूस कर सकता है. 50% ऑफ द स्पर्म्स आर विद X क्रोमोसोम, एंड 50% ऑफ द स्पर्म दे आर विद Y क्रोमोसोम, and only one type of ova are produced by female, that is with X chromosome. Now what happens when the sperm having Y chromosome, they fertilize the ovum, then the genotype will be XY. As a result, male baby will be produced, or male baby will born, and when this X sperm fertilizes the ovum, then female or girl is formed. So you can say that it is scientifically proved that it is only the male which decides the gender of the baby, not the female, because female has only one type of ova. She cannot produce, she cannot give rise to the male baby. It is only the male, the sperm of the male, rather you can say the sperm of the male, which decides the gender of the baby, that whether it will be a male child or it will be a female child. Though you cannot blame the male or female for the birth of this male and female child, it is a chance factor whether sperms bearing X chromosome fertilizes the ovum, or the sperm with Y chromosome fertilizes the ovum, producing a boy. So this was all about the fertilization and implantation. In the next video we will talk about the development of the embryo and you can say post fertilization changes. What are those changes, how placenta is formed, and what type of changes, what is organogenesis, that we will talk about in the next video. Thank you very much.